welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be doing another episode of History of Horror, and today we are going to be talking about Jason Voorhees. I actually already filmed this once and it was 30 minutes long, and then all of the footage got deleted, so I am refilming it and hopefully it'll be shorter because I already did the makeup. So we're going to talk about Jason. There's 12 movies to get through, so let's get started. So like I said, there are 12 Friday the 13th movies. However, not all of them feature Jason as the killer, but each movie centers around Camp Crystal Lake, and there being teenagers there that are getting killed out of either revenge for Jason being killed or them just being in Jason's territory and him not being there. So the first one came out in 1980, and that was Friday the 13th. They're all called, for the most part, they're all called Friday the 13th, just part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I think till the 8th one, and then they change. So in the first one, the killer is actually Jason's mother, who is killing teens who are at the camp because her son drowned in the lake when he was a little boy at camp and the counselors weren't paying attention. So basically she blames any teenage counselor that happens to be at the lake for his death and kills them off. However, we have two survivors. We have a girl and a boy who are, I believe, girlfriend and boyfriend in the movie, as you usually do in an 80s horror film. And they end up killing Pam. However, at the end of the movie is revealed that Jason is in fact not dead and is still living around the lake. Part 2 goes into Jason being the killer. So this is the first time we see him. He's an adult, but he doesn't have the mask. It's revealed that he was born on Friday the 13th and he was premature and has some deformities to his face, so that's what's supposed to make him like scary, and this all takes place 5 years after Pam's death. So the camp has been closed, he's been living in solitude, but now they feel they can open the camp back up, that the bad publicity has left the area, and there are new teenagers there being trained as counselors, and they all start dying. And in this movie we see Jason find the hockey mask and he puts it over his face, because at first it is like he has like a burlap bag over his face that he turns into a mask, and then he finds the hockey mask, and as we all know, the hockey mask became kind of iconic and synonymous with Jason. So this movie, just like the others, is actually really super gory, especially for the time. And there actually had to be several cuts made to the film so that it could achieve an R rating and not be an X rating and actually be able to be shown in theaters. Part 3 came out in 1982. This is following right after Part 2. And campers are back at the camp and Jason is thought to be dead, which happens in a lot of these movies. They think they've killed him. However, he's still alive. And he goes back to killing people. This was actually supposed to be the end of the series. There wasn't supposed to be any more movies after this. It was supposed to be done and over with. And I think I read my notes wrong. Yes. So the second movie, Jason didn't have a mask. The third movie is when Jason finds the hockey mask and puts it on. And this is also the first movie that was in 3D. In the series, and the only movie that was in 3D, and I heard that it wasn't that great in 3D. Like, it was very the special effects were of the time. And then Part 4 ended up happening because Part 3 did so well in theaters. In 1984 they released the fourth one, which was supposed to be the final chapter, all done. This was going to be it. And this also immediately follows Part 3. Jason, again, is thought to be dead, and he escapes the morgue and ends up making his way back to Camp Crystal Lake so he can kill again. There's a new group of campers there, and we also meet people who just kind of live in the area. I guess this is a question that a lot of people had, was like, well, does anyone live around this camp, or is it just like desolate? And of course, there are people who live around there. And this is where we meet Tommy, the little boy who is like a horror fanatic and makes his own masks and stuff. And he is actually the start to a brand new storyline all about Jason after he kills him. So he kills Jason and ends up, it like was a cliffhanger ending and people really liked it, so they made a fifth movie. In 1985, we see Tommy, who is now suffering from like PTSD and trauma of killing Jason and seeing his mother attacked by Jason, although she survived. So he is put in a halfway house to try and rehabilitate him, treat his mental health, but obviously it goes all wrong. This movie had a ton of sex and drugs and nudity, and again, a lot of it had to be cut to even make it to theaters, and I guess this was inspired by the fact that a lot of people in the cast were using really heavy drugs at the time, so they kind of worked it into the plot line. In this movie, there is a hockey mask killer as always, but it is revealed as not Jason. People think that it is Tommy. They believe that somehow he is trying to recreate the murders, that he's gotten crazy and, you know, has kind of snapped, and he is just carrying on Jason's legacy. However, it is found out that it is actually the father of one of Jason's previous victims who has actually had a mental break and has begun killing as the Jason persona. But this movie ends uncertainly with Tommy wearing the mask and holding a knife and looking to be attacking a nurse at the halfway house. So it kind of left everybody on a cliffhanger, and they made part 6 because of it. So Tommy is released or escapes, and he says that he is going to find Jason's body and cremate him so that he is sure he is dead, that he can't come back from the grave. But of course, as in all 80s horror movies, something goes wrong and Jason is actually electrocuted by lightning and comes back to life a la Frankenstein's monster and wants to kill Tommy and everybody else at Camp Crystal Lake. But he goes on a news spree and they defeat him, and he is thought to be dead. So in part 7, which came out in 1988, this was the original, well, it was supposed to be the original Freddie versus Jason. They wanted to get this movie out in the 80s because Freddie was so big. However, there was a lot of conflict between the production teams, and it took basically too long for them to get it out before they needed to have the movie ready. So it became a storyline that was more Jason versus Carrie than Jason versus Freddie. Jason is at the bottom of the lake from the last movie, and he is brought back to life by this teenage psychic girl who's trying to bring her father back to life, who she had killed accidentally previously in her life. And Jason comes back from the lake, and the two end up battling each other around the lake, and Jason's killing people and she's trying to save everybody before Jason is ultimately dragged back to the bottom of the lake. Then we have part 8, which I could argue is potentially the worst Friday the 13th movie, because this is Jason Takes Manhattan. There's just so much to this plot that doesn't make sense to me, but I will give you a brief synopsis. Jason's corpse is shocked at the bottom of the lake, and he is brought back to life, and he boards a cruise that is going around Camp Crystal Lake that is full of high school seniors who will be departing on the cruise to New York City. Of course, he ends up killing a bunch of the people on the boat before it docks in New York, but once it does, Jason gets off the boat and starts a murderous rampage through New York. And there's a lot of scenes where he like dies, or there's some sort of toxic waste involved that's supposed to kill him, but it doesn't the first time, and then it does the second time, and he turns back into a little boy, and then he's gone, and they think that he's finally dead. But again, this was supposed to be the last movie, you know, like Jason's last stand or whatever, and it got like mixed reviews, so they ended up making a part 9. So part 9 is Jason Goes to Hell. He is resurrected once again at the county morgue, and he is killed by FBI agents before he gets to the morgue. He's like lured by the FBI to the lake, and they kill him there. So he uses body jumping to get around to different people. He convinces the coroner to eat his heart, and then the coroner kills people, and then after so many kills, his like soul or spirit or whatever jumps to a different body. But in this movie, he finally gets back to the lake, and it's revealed that as long as someone in his family that he's blood related to kills him, he can actually be killed and never brought back to life. So people in his family are trying to kill him, and it's like this great battle of like these 3 people who can kill him and him. But when he is killed, his heart crawls out of his body and goes up into a woman and turns into a demon baby that she gives birth to later in the movie, and it's supposed to be like Jason is reborn that way. But also just Jason himself is killed and dragged to hell by Freddie, which was supposed to be the setup for Freddie versus Jason. But that movie didn't come until later. Jason Goes to Hell is like also confusing and seems like there's some really ridiculous parts to it. Like these movies get more and more ridiculous basically after like part 5 they get more ridiculous. I feel like if in any franchise, once you get past number 5, it starts to get just slightly more stupid every time. So then we have part 10, which came out in 2001, and this is basically Jason in space. There is so much that goes on in this movie that I really think you have to watch it to get the full scope. But it was supposed to be a sci-fi twist on it, and Jason is supposed to be in the future, like 443 years after the events of part 9. So Jason's frozen body that was being experimented on is thawed on like Earth 1, and the people of Earth 2 come and take his body to like dissect it and experiment it on their spaceship. But then he starts killing people, and then some robot kills him, and then someone rebuilds him as a cyborg, and then he kills more people. It's a lot. And then it's supposed to be like the spaceship blows up over what is like Earth 2's Camp Crystal Lake, and that's supposed to be like his demise. However, this was never said to be like the last movie in this section, because in 2003 we got Freddie versus Jason, which I went in depth in on my Freddy Krueger video. But basically Freddie uses Jason to do his killing. Jason doesn't want to listen to Freddie anymore, so they battle each other at like the big warehouse. And finally in 2009 we had part 12. This was meant to be a brand new storyline, taking the best parts of 1, 2, 3, and 4 and putting them together to create a whole new series. The end of this movie is really open-ended. Like, Jason definitely isn't dead. We know that. And it was supposed to start a whole new, like, 1, 2, 3, 4 of movies. However, there have been no more movies announced, and this came out in 2009, so I really don't think we're getting any more anytime soon that go based off the storyline. And none like even went straight to DVD or anything. So I think right now the Jason franchise is kind of dead. So that is it for my evolution of Jason series. Sometimes he's Jason, sometimes he's not, but most of the time it is Jason Voorhees doing the killing. This character, I mean, I think he's very unique in the fact that he doesn't always kill the same way. Yes, the machete is like the iconic weapon that he uses, but there's a lot of superhuman strength involved and some different twists that kind of make him be able to kill however he wants. So this one is, I think this is episode 6, so I only have like 2 more episodes of History of Horror to do in this section. I have put together like a part 2 series that I will eventually do, but I'll take a little break and then do that one. But the next week's episode is going to be Chucky, and I'm very excited about it. I just have to get my costume together, so I hope to get that up soon for you guys. And yeah, if you like these, make sure you check out the History of Horror playlist, because I talk about a lot of the vintage horror people early on in the series. And yeah, now we're on to the modern stuff. So I will see you guys in the next one, and bye.